These two chapters are in the middle of what is commonly considered to be a special section of Isaiah. Chapters 24 to 27 appear to be a unit set apart from what precedes and follows. As you might remember from the first video on chapters 1 and 2, Isaiah is normally divided into two chunks, the first being chapters 1 to 39, and then the second being 40 to 66. Of this first chunk, chapters 1 to 12 concern Judah, and then chapters 13 to 23 have been about other nations as well as Judah. So in chapters 24 to 27, we are in an important bridge towards the final sections of the first big chunk of Isaiah. One scholar who wrote a major commentary on Isaiah complained that this unique section is one of the most difficult sections to interpret in the whole book of Isaiah. The biggest challenge for interpreters is the total lack of context. There are no statements or even hints about the background to these chapters, whether time spans or historical actions. Indeed, the time seems to be more focused on the future, on the ultimate day of the Lord. And as for nation or region, it appears the whole world is now in view. Because of this focus on the end of all things and the beginning of the new, plus some remarkable hints of the resurrection and mythological language to boot, these chapters are usually referred to as Isaiah's Apocalypse or Isaiah's mini-apocalypse. Chapter 24 continuously references the earth, along with the heavens and the east and west and coastlands. The inhabitants of the earth suffer for their guilt. The nations are likened to a harvest tree or vine, and the kings will be gathered together into a pit to await judgment. The scope is universal. The sins are general and ubiquitous. All are guilty. No cities or regions are referenced. Chapter 24 is in the familiar judgment oracle form, but chapter 25 is a prayer or psalm-like song of thanksgiving. Isaiah praises God for the unfolding judgment because for all the remarkable things which have happened, the turmoil and twisting fortunes, it has all been something God planned long ago. His plans were formed of old, and they are faithful and sure. The entire world might be changing rapidly and seem completely out of control, with kings which one day rule not just a region but the whole world, and the next day are worm food. But God in his judgments is revealed as the true king of the world, Melech HaOlam, king of the universe. Verses 6 to 10 are particularly wonderful as the promise of victory in the new age, which includes not just the end of warfare, but the end of death itself and abundance for all. The imagery of a banquet on the mountain in verse 6 finds fulfillment in Jesus feeding the 5,000 on the mountain in Matthew's Gospel in particular. The image of a banquet following the final victory is also in Matthew 8, and perhaps most famously as the wedding banquet in Revelation 19. Paul uses verse 7 in 1 Corinthians 15:54, when he says death has been swallowed up in victory. And the voice from the throne in Revelation 21:4 uses verse 8, when he says that in the New Jerusalem, God will wipe away every tear as death is no more. Chapter 26 is another psalm-like piece. It is a song of victory to be sung on that great day in Judah. It extols the needy over the powerful and the righteous over the wicked. God's fiery judgment is now directed away from his restored people and towards their enemies again. Isaiah reflects on Israel's failures and frustrations, but as in verse 19, God brings new life out of this emptiness. The promise relates not just to the rebirth of Israel as God's people, but to the resurrection itself, the defeat of death. It is one of the clearest references to the promise of life after death in the Old Testament. Chapter 27 switches to highly mythological language to describe God's judgment. The sea monster was a symbol of chaos in the ancient Near East, though sometimes it was also used to portray Egypt, as in Psalm 74, but also later in Isaiah and also Ezekiel. In Revelation, the dreaded beast comes out of the sea, and when the new creation is revealed, the sea is no more. Such imagery reinforces the global and cosmic scope of God's final victory in this special section. It ends with the promise of gathering the exiles from Egypt and Assyria back to worship the Lord on his holy mountain.